Now, coming up on the programme this morning, we touched on this during the week, the issue of homework and the fact that homework can cause stress in some households. Homework time can cause stress. And we've tracked down the expert who has come out this week claiming that homework can have a negative effect on family life, not just on the child trying to do the homework, but on the entire family. So we're going to be looking at that issue of homework today and looking for your thoughts and comments on it. Has anybody out there found a solution to the stress around homework time in the past? Did you have a very stressful time, and did you do something that actually worked, that eased stress in your house around homework? Or would you be agreeing with this expert that it simply is a waste of time and we should be scrapping homework, going back to the drawing board and coming up with some other way, some other solution to replace homework? Or are you in the group that agrees that homework is good, that it is good for children to be given a structured time, a set time to do their homework when they come in the evening time? Your thoughts and comments welcomed on
the
that.
The C103 text line, powered by eMobile.
Now, excessive homework is a pointless exercise that's eroding family life. That's according to education expert Dr. Naoisé O'Reilly, who set up a homework club in Blanchardstown to help young people, especially those with dyslexia, to succeed in exams. And Dr. Naoisé O'Reilly now joins me on the programme. Good morning to you, Naoisé.
Good morning.
You're welcome to the programme. Is it the length of time spent doing homework, or is it the actual work that's given out that you feel is wrong?
It's a combination of the two, actually. Like we have 6 and 7-year-old students who are spending anything up to 2 hours working, and then we see as people, go into secondary school, that they're spending at least 3 hours in first year, maybe 4 and 5, approaching the junior cert, and even more than that when they're doing the leaving cert. And so what you kind of see is that people go to school Monday to Thursday, go home in the evenings, do a lot of work, maybe take a little bit of time off on Friday evenings, and then spend a lot of time over the weekend doing homework. And especially the young students are being supported by the parents to do all of that. So the parents are having to spend quite a bit of time, especially if they, as I said, have any sort of learning difficulties. Parents are quite used to stepping in from very young ages to try and support their children. So that's some of it. And then on the other side, I kind of feel that the reason that they're spending so much time doing it is because the work that's being set is not particularly effective. It's not very coherent. It's not really thought out. It's very, very short-sighted. It's all about, redoing what you did today in school.
Yeah, I know when I mentioned this earlier on in the week, somebody was talking about supervising her grandchild doing the homework, and it was a 7-year-old child copying out word for word something that was in a workbook, and it took a full hour, and she said it just made no sense at all.
No, and it's quite common for me to see grandparents stepping in at this stage because the parents are both at work. I would deal with quite a lot of grandparents in the school.
How do we compare to other countries when it comes to homework?
I'm afraid to say that the other countries are not really doing much better, to be honest with you. I think that the person who's held up as sort of the pinnacle of education at the moment is Finland, and they certainly don't set as much work. They believe that their students should have a lot less contact time so that they should have time to develop in other ways. And Finland are very, very pro family time. So actually their working hours are shorter to sort of promote family life. Family life is hugely important in Finland. So that would be the only one that I would know that would actively take it on board, this whole concept of family time and how important it is to people.
And is the problem worse in secondary school than in primary school?
No, I think they're both equally problematic because when people are in primary school, like they're really small. Like they're all looking forward to Santa Claus this time of the year. They all want to grow up and be astronauts and explorers. Like they're very young to have this kind of pressure. And then similarly, when people start secondary school at 12, they're not really adults. They're not much older. They shouldn't have this sort of weight of the world on their shoulders. And particularly looking at junior cert students, like they're under a huge amount of pressure. That people seem to be having to grow up younger and younger.
What's an ideal time for homework, do you think?
Well, I don't think it's about an ideal time. I think it's about an ideal task. Like, what I'm doing in the homework club is basically I've devised a new way of teaching. And the reason I set about doing this was because I really wanted to incorporate students with learning difficulties such as dyslexia, dyscalculia, Asperger's, visual impairments, hearing impairments, all effectively into a classroom environment rather than having to sort of always constantly pull them out and do something different. So my idea is that if you teach people in 4 different ways always, if it's auditory, visual, practical, and kinesthetic, that all of the students are really involved and really focused on the class. and they're really participating, they're really working the way that they need to work. And so what I kind of feel is that if someone comes down and spends an hour with us and they work very effectively on their subject, they really shouldn't have to do very much more outside, because you always remember what you've done, what you've enjoyed, what you've really been interested in. So I think that it's not just about time, it's about the sort of way that we're working and what you're trying to set up for people to do, and how they're actually working themselves in the way that suits them.
Yeah, it's the quality. It's the
It really is.
It's the quality.
And it needs to move on. Like, we're long beyond using books and paper. Like, there's a vast amount of material on the internet for people to use. Like, people should really be using a lot more off YouTube and Google in terms of images and videos and songs. And there's just so much in the world to use.
Okay, Linda has a daughter in first year, can't believe, just started in first year office in September, can't believe the amount of work that she gets. She's wondering, do teachers talk to each other? Her daughter has 8 or 9 subjects. Do the teachers realise what the other teacher is giving? Which is a good point. Is there any joint up thinking between teachers?
It doesn't appear to me that there's a very coherent structure, and this becomes really obvious when we get to junior cert and we get to leaving cert years, because we have the students being set homework from every individual teacher. It's not very skills-based. It's not really focused towards how do you write well for the exam in June, how do you answer questions, how do you understand the exam words in the exam paper, those sort of key skills that I'd expect to happen. That's not coming up. So they're doing sort of homework to pop up every day's class, and then they're expected to stay in school for after school revision and do a revision timetable. So even our most conscientious students who are spending 4 and 5 hours working still feel like they're never doing enough. So it's very obvious to me in those situations that there isn't a cohesive plan coming out of school.
Kathleen in Bantry wonders, would it be better to have a longer school day and then no homework? I can't see teachers agreeing to that, but anyway.
I don't really see that there's any need. Like, we have enough hours in a day. Like, part of my argument about this was that we were teaching bad habits for life. Like, there's so many of you only work effectively for so many hours a day, and when we want people to go to the workplace, we want them to work for a certain span of time that's sensible and work very effectively in that time. And we don't want them to constantly take their work home to their families or to their friends. You know, we want them to go home, relax, let go, have another life, have other interests, balance things, de-stress, and then come back into the workplace and work very effectively. And that's what we should be doing in school. And there's plenty enough hours in the day in school to do it.
Sean in West Cork on homework reckons it's a result of lazy teachers putting the responsibility on to parents. And Marie, here's interesting one, Marie in Doneraile actually is involved as a tutor with adult literacy. She says homework is a huge issue with people who have reading and writing difficulties. They're unable to help their children with their homework, and it's very stressful for these people.
Yes, it's a massive issue, because 1 in 4 people in this country have a literacy difficulty, and I would have a lot of parents in my school who are not able to support their students, their children. And, like, for instance, my own father would never have been able to help me with my schoolwork because he's very severely dyslexic, and my mother's not any good at spelling either. So I certainly didn't have a home environment to go home to for people to prop me up.
And there are a lot of children like that.
There's a huge amount of children like that.
And Nisha, what do you say to parents who find that homework time stressful? I mean, there's a lot of families listening to this going, the screaming that can go on around the kitchen table trying to get children to finish their homework. How do you suggest parents handle it?
Well, I did a workshop last week for Aspire, and the focus of the workshop was to help parents support their children at home with homework. One of the things that kind of came up for me was to try and make it more interesting, to broaden it out, to bring it into a context of, the political things that are happening in the country today, to watch films, documentaries together, to try to go out into the environment and do things outside, whether it was nature or museums or art or music, whatever it was. So, I think that's the role of parents. Cooking at home is huge. I think if you feel that your child is under a huge amount of pressure, and you can see that what they're being set to do is kind of worthless, I think you should start to question it, and that's why I raised this debate.
So go into the school and discuss it with the teachers.
I think so. I think people have to start to question this and question why things are being set. I think that there's a very small amount of parents out there who have this idea that doing homework, it has to be done. and that the reason that homework is set is somehow some sort of an assessment of what's actually happening in school. This has come up a few times, both in the workshop and over the interviews I've done, that it's some sort of a benchmark for what's happening in school. And I don't think it should be like that. Like, the students and the children themselves have to take responsibility for their own learning. It should be about them understanding their successes and where they've gone and how much progress they've made, not what the teacher's done in school.
Yeah, because I know a couple of weeks ago we were looking at the new junior certificate that's going to be coming in 2014, I think it is. And there's much more project work involved in that and much more work on developing the young person rather than sitting down and learning off all the poetry.
Yes. No, in essence, that course and the objectives of it are very good. But I do still worry a little bit because, for instance, when Project Maths has come in now, I've seen that people are still teaching maths sort of in the old way where people don't really understand it, and the whole point of Project Maths is that you're supposed to devise the answers yourself and work through the problems and understand what's happening. And so there's a bit of a clash going on at the moment in how it's being taught and how you have to think, and there's a little bit of worry because with Project Maths you also have to do continual assessment as well. So I'm just wondering how it's going to work if you have to do continual assessment for every subject. We're just a little bit concerned that it's going to be a bit like the homework at the moment that's being set by every teacher. That you'll have a continual assessment in every subject and they'll all coincide together. So I just, again, part of the reason for sort of raising this homework debate is I also want people to start to think, well, how is doing continual assessment going to work?
Okay. And Marie says the doctor you're speaking with was Dr. Naoisé. Marie, I'm always keen to hire and work with people who learn not to bring work home. Life balance is so important.
Yes, it is. It's huge. Like we can't get the best out of ourselves unless we're happy.
Okay, good food for thought, Naoisé. Thank you for that, and thanks for joining us on the programme. Bye bye. And that is educational expert Dr. Naoisé O'Reilly. 1850 333 103 lines open.